What if everything you've been taught about attracting women is wrong? I'm talking about the loud, chest-thumping, look-at-me nonsense that's been sold to you as confidence. The whole alpha male performance that has you competing for attention like a peacock in a zoo. Here's the reality check you need. Women aren't impressed by the guy who tries the hardest to impress them. They're mesmerized by the guy who doesn't need to try at all. This isn't about tactics. This isn't about pickup lines or mind games. This is about identity. This is about becoming the kind of man who operates from a completely different frequency than everyone else around him. The kind of man who walks into a room and doesn't announce his presence, but somehow everyone feels it anyway. Why are the calmest men often the most unforgettable? Because while every other guy is performing, competing, and desperately seeking validation, the nonchalant man is sitting back, observing, and being completely comfortable in his own skin. And that comfort, that ease, that's like catnip to women who are drowning in a sea of needy, attention-seeking males. You think women want confidence. They do, but not the kind you're thinking. See, there's a massive difference between performance confidence and embodied calm. Performance confidence is the guy who walks into a bar, buys everyone drinks, tells loud stories, and makes sure everyone knows he's successful. He's performing his value. He's advertising his worth. He's essentially saying, please validate me based on what I can do for you. Embodied calm, that's the guy who walks into the same bar, orders his drink, and sits quietly in the corner. He's not trying to impress anyone because he's already impressed with himself. The nonchalant man has reached a level of self-acceptance and self-respect that makes him immune to the opinions of others. He's not seeking external validation because he's found internal validation. He's not looking for someone to complete him because he's already complete. He's not trying to prove his worth because he knows his worth. This inner knowing is what creates his magnetic presence. When you know who you are, when you're comfortable in your own skin, when you're at peace with yourself, you emanate a different kind of energy. You operate from a different frequency. You move through the world with a different kind of confidence. And women are drawn to this energy like magnets. They can feel it the moment they meet you. They can sense that you're different from other men. They can tell that you're not needy, not desperate, not trying to get something from them. They can feel that you're complete, whole, and at peace with yourself. But here's what's really happening on a deeper level. The nonchalant man has transcended the need for external validation. Most men are constantly seeking approval, constantly trying to prove themselves, constantly looking for someone to tell them they're good enough. But the nonchalant man, he's moved beyond that. He's found his own approval. He's proven himself to himself. He's told himself he's good enough. This transcendence is what creates the magnetic pull. When you're not seeking anything from others, when you're not trying to get anything from them, when you're not looking for them to fill some void in your life, you become incredibly attractive. You become the kind of person others want to be around. The nonchalant man doesn't just attract women romantically. He attracts people in general. He attracts opportunities. He attracts success. He attracts everything he wants in life because he's become the kind of person who naturally draws good things to him. Think about the most attractive people you know. Are they the ones who are constantly seeking approval, constantly trying to impress others, constantly looking for validation? Or are they the ones who seem completely comfortable in their own skin, who don't seem to need anything from anyone, who are just naturally magnetic? The nonchalant man falls into the latter category. He's naturally magnetic because he's not trying to be magnetic. He's naturally attractive because he's not trying to be attractive. He's naturally compelling because he's not trying to be compelling. He just is. And this natural magnetism is what creates long-term attraction. It's not based on what he does or says or gives. It's based on who he is. It's based on his energy, his presence, his being. And you can't fake being. You can't pretend to have a certain energy. You either have it or you don't. The nonchalant man has developed this energy through years of inner work, personal development, and self-mastery. He's not born with it. He's cultivated it. He's earned it. He's become it. Now let's talk about the practical transformation. Because understanding these principles is one thing, but embodying them is another. How do you actually become the nonchalant man? How do you develop this inner abundance? How do you cultivate this emotional stability? How do you create this magnetic presence? First, you have to understand that this is not a quick fix. This is not a technique you can learn overnight. This is a fundamental transformation of who you are at your core. This is about changing your entire relationship with yourself, with others, with the world. The nonchalant man starts with radical self-acceptance. He accepts himself completely, flaws and all. He doesn't try to be perfect. He doesn't try to hide his imperfections. He doesn't try to be someone he's not. He accepts himself as he is, while still working to become better. This self-acceptance is the foundation of everything else. You can't be truly confident if you don't accept yourself. You can't be emotionally stable if you're constantly fighting against who you are. You can't be at peace if you're at war with yourself. The nonchalant man has made peace with himself. He stopped fighting against his nature. He stopped trying to be someone else. He's embraced who he is while still working to improve. And that peace, that self-acceptance, that's what creates his unshakable confidence. Second, the nonchalant man develops emotional mastery. He doesn't suppress his emotions. He doesn't ignore them. He doesn't try to be emotionless. He masters them. He learns to feel his emotions without being controlled by them. He learns to experience his feelings without being overwhelmed by them. This emotional mastery is what allows him to remain calm in the face of chaos, stable in the face of drama, grounded in the face of emotional storms. He feels everything, but he's not at the mercy of his feelings. He experiences emotions, but he doesn't let them dictate his actions. Developing emotional mastery requires practice, patience, and often professional help. It requires therapy, meditation, journaling, self-reflection, and conscious work on your emotional patterns. It requires facing your fears, healing your wounds, and developing your emotional intelligence. The nonchalant man has done this work. He's faced his demons. He's healed his wounds. He's developed his emotional intelligence. He's mastered his emotional responses. And that mastery, that's what gives him his power. Third, the nonchalant man cultivates inner abundance. He develops a rich inner life that doesn't depend on external circumstances. He finds happiness within himself. He creates fulfillment through his own actions. He generates peace through his own practices. This inner abundance is what eliminates neediness. When you're already full, you don't need someone else to fill you. When you're already complete, you don't need someone else to complete you. When you're already abundant, you don't need someone else to provide for you. The nonchalant man has interests that fascinate him, goals that motivate him, friends who inspire him, activities that fulfill him. His life is rich and full with or without a romantic partner. He's not looking for someone to make his life better. His life is already good. He's looking for someone to share his already good life with. This abundance mindset is what creates his magnetic presence. People are drawn to abundance. They're repelled by scarcity. They want to be around people who are full, complete, and overflowing with life. They want to be part of something rich and fulfilling. The nonchalant man offers this. He offers the opportunity to be part of an already abundant life. He offers the chance to share in something that's already good. He offers the possibility of adding to something that's already full, rather than trying to fill something that's empty. Fourth, the nonchalant man develops unshakable self-respect. He values himself highly. He treats himself well. He sets boundaries and enforces them. He doesn't tolerate disrespect from anyone, including himself. This self-respect is what creates his standards. He doesn't accept just anyone into his life. He doesn't tolerate just any behavior. He doesn't lower his standards to accommodate others. He maintains his dignity and expects others to respect it. The nonchalant man doesn't compromise his values to make others comfortable. He doesn't sacrifice his integrity to avoid conflict. He doesn't betray himself to gain approval. He remains true to himself, regardless of the consequences. This self-respect is magnetic because it's rare. Most people don't respect themselves enough to maintain high standards. Most people compromise their values to avoid conflict. Most people betray themselves to gain approval. But the nonchalant man, he's different. He respects himself too much to do any of those things. Fifth, the nonchalant man develops genuine confidence. Not the loud, performative confidence that seeks attention, but the quiet, solid confidence that doesn't need validation. Not the arrogant confidence that puts others down, but the secure confidence that lifts others up. This genuine confidence comes from competence, from knowing who you are, from accepting yourself, from respecting yourself, from having inner abundance. It's not something you can fake. It's something you have to develop through experience, through growth, through becoming the kind of person who deserves to be confident. The nonchalant man has earned his confidence. He's developed his skills. He's achieved his goals. He's overcome his challenges. He's faced his fears. He's done the work. And that work, that's what gives him his unshakable confidence. This confidence is attractive because it's real. It's not based on what others think of him. It's based on what he knows about himself. It's not dependent on external validation. It's rooted in internal validation. It's not fragile or defensive. It's solid and secure. Sixth, the nonchalant man creates a life worth sharing. He doesn't just exist, he lives. He doesn't just survive, he thrives. He doesn't just get by, he excels. He creates a life that's so rich, so full, so interesting that others want to be part of it. This life includes meaningful work, fulfilling relationships, interesting hobbies, personal growth, adventure, learning, contribution, and joy. It's not perfect, but it's authentic. It's not without challenges, but it's worth living. It's not complete, but it's constantly evolving. The nonchalant man invites others to be part of this life, but he doesn't need them to complete it. He shares his life, but he doesn't give it away. He includes others, but he doesn't lose himself. He opens his world, but he doesn't abandon his boundaries. This life is attractive because it's authentic. It's not created to impress others. It's created to fulfill himself. It's not performed for an audience. It's lived for its own sake. It's not about looking good. It's about being good. Seventh, the nonchalant man practices presence. He's not constantly thinking about the past or worrying about the future. He's present in the moment. He's aware of what's happening now. He's engaged with current reality. This presence is what creates his magnetic energy. When you're fully present, you emanate a different kind of power. You command attention without seeking it. You create connection without forcing it. You inspire others without trying to. The nonchalant man doesn't multitask during conversations. He doesn't check his phone while someone is talking. He doesn't think about other things while someone is sharing. He's fully present, fully engaged, fully there. This presence is rare, and therefore valuable. Most people are distracted, scattered, and mentally elsewhere. But the nonchalant man, he's right here, right now, fully engaged with whatever is happening in this moment. Eighth, the nonchalant man maintains his mystery. He doesn't reveal everything about himself immediately. He doesn't overshare. He doesn't try to impress others with his life story. He reveals himself gradually, naturally, authentically. This mystery isn't about being deceptive or secretive. It's about having depth that reveals itself over time. It's about being interesting enough that people want to know more. It's about having layers that unfold naturally through relationship. The nonchalant man doesn't tell people how interesting he is. He shows them through his actions, his choices, his responses. He doesn't talk about his adventures. He lives them. He doesn't boast about his achievements. He embodies them. This mystery creates intrigue. It makes people curious. It makes them want to know more, to understand more, to explore more. It creates the kind of attraction that lasts, that deepens, that grows over time. Ninth, the nonchalant man embraces his masculine energy. He doesn't apologize for being a man. He doesn't try to be something he's not. He embraces his natural masculine qualities while still being respectful, kind, and considerate. This masculine energy includes strength, stability, decisiveness, leadership, protectiveness, and groundedness. It's not about domination or aggression. It's about being solid, reliable, and strong. It's about being the kind of man others can count on. The nonchalant man doesn't compete with feminine energy. He complements it. He doesn't try to be more emotional than women. He provides stability for their emotions. He doesn't try to be more nurturing than women. He provides strength for their nurturing. This masculine energy is attractive to feminine energy. It creates polarity, which creates attraction. It provides what feminine energy naturally seeks: stability, strength, and groundedness. 10th, the nonchalant man continuously grows. He doesn't become complacent. He doesn't stop learning. He doesn't stop improving. He's constantly evolving, constantly growing, constantly becoming a better version of himself. This growth mindset keeps him interesting, keeps him attractive, keeps him magnetic. He's not the same person he was yesterday. He's not going to be the same person tomorrow. He's constantly evolving, constantly improving, constantly growing. The nonchalant man reads books, takes courses, seeks mentorship, faces challenges, tries new things, and pushes himself outside his comfort zone. He's committed to becoming the best version of himself, not for others, but for himself. This commitment to growth is attractive because it shows that he's not settling, not becoming complacent, not giving up on himself. He's actively working to become better, and that work, that's magnetic. Now let's address some common misconceptions about the nonchalant man, because there are many ways to get this wrong, many ways to misunderstand these principles, many ways to fake what should be genuine. First misconception: the nonchalant man is cold or emotionless. This is not true. The nonchalant man feels deeply. He just doesn't let his emotions control him. He experiences feelings without being overwhelmed by them. He's not cold, he's controlled. He's not emotionless, he's emotionally stable. Second misconception: the nonchalant man doesn't care about anyone. This is not true. The nonchalant man cares deeply about the people in his life. He just doesn't sacrifice himself for others. He cares without being codependent. He loves without losing himself. He gives without depleting himself. Third misconception: the nonchalant man is manipulative. This is not true. The nonchalant man is authentic. He's not trying to manipulate anyone. He's not playing games. He's not using techniques. He's simply being himself, and that authentic self happens to be attractive. Fourth misconception: the nonchalant man is arrogant. This is not true. The nonchalant man is confident, not arrogant. He knows his worth without putting others down. He believes in himself without diminishing others. He's secure without being superior. Fifth misconception. The nonchalant man doesn't pursue women. This is not entirely true. The nonchalant man does pursue women he's interested in. He just doesn't chase them. He doesn't become needy or desperate. He expresses his interest and then allows things to unfold naturally. The nonchalant man pursues from a place of abundance, not scarcity. He pursues because he's interested, not because he needs validation. He pursues with confidence, not desperation. He pursues authentically, not manipulatively. Sixth misconception. The nonchalant man doesn't commit. This is not true. The nonchalant man is capable of deep commitment. He just doesn't commit out of neediness or desperation. He commits when he finds someone worth committing to. He commits from a place of choice, not obligation. When the nonchalant man commits, he commits fully. He doesn't hedge his bets. He doesn't keep one foot out the door. He doesn't maintain backup options. He commits completely while still maintaining his identity and independence. Seventh misconception. The nonchalant man is perfect. This is not true. The nonchalant man has flaws, makes mistakes, and faces challenges like everyone else. He's just learned to accept his imperfections while still working to improve. He's learned to be confident despite his flaws. The nonchalant man doesn't pretend to be perfect. He doesn't try to hide his imperfections. He doesn't try to be someone he's not. He accepts himself completely while still working to grow and improve. Now let's talk about the transformation process. Because becoming the nonchalant man is not something that happens overnight. It's a journey, a process, a gradual evolution from who you are now to who you want to become. The first stage is awareness. You have to become aware of your current patterns, your current behaviors, your current mindset. You have to see clearly where you are now before you can map out where you want to go. This awareness can be uncomfortable. You might realize that you've been needy, desperate, or codependent. You might see that you've been seeking validation, approval, or completion from others. You might recognize that you've been living from a place of scarcity rather than abundance. But this awareness is necessary. You can't change what you don't acknowledge. You can't transform what you don't recognize. You can't become something different if you don't first understand what you currently are. The second stage is acceptance. You have to accept where you are now without judgment, without shame, without self-attack. You have to be compassionate with yourself about your current state while still being committed to growth. This acceptance is not about settling or giving up. It's about starting from a place of self-compassion rather than self-criticism. It's about loving yourself enough to work on yourself rather than hating yourself into change. The third stage is commitment. You have to commit to the process of transformation. You have to decide that you're willing to do whatever it takes to become the man you want to be. You have to be willing to face your fears, heal your wounds, and do the hard work of personal growth. This commitment is not a one-time decision. It's a daily choice. It's a moment-by-moment decision to choose growth over comfort, truth over illusion, authenticity over performance. The fourth stage is action. You have to take concrete steps toward transformation. You have to start practicing new behaviors, developing new habits, and implementing new mindsets. You have to do the work, not just think about it. This action includes therapy, meditation, journaling, reading, learning, practicing, and implementing. It includes facing your fears, healing your wounds, and developing your emotional intelligence. It includes building new habits and breaking old patterns. The fifth stage is persistence. You have to persist through the challenges, setbacks, and difficulties that inevitably arise during transformation. You have to keep going even when it's hard, even when you don't feel like it, even when you don't see immediate results. This persistence is what separates those who transform from those who remain stuck. It's what separates those who become the nonchalant man from those who just think about it. It's what separates those who create lasting change from those who just dream about it. The sixth stage is integration. You have to integrate these new ways of being into your daily life. You have to make them part of who you are, not just something you do. You have to embody these principles, not just understand them intellectually. This integration takes time, practice, and patience. You have to be willing to make mistakes, learn from them, and keep growing. You have to be willing to be imperfect while still striving for improvement. The seventh stage is mastery. You reach a point where being the nonchalant man is not something you do, it's something you are. It's not a performance, it's your authentic self. It's not an act, it's your identity. This mastery is not about being perfect, it's about being authentic. It's about being so comfortable with who you are that you don't need to pretend to be someone else. It's about being so secure in yourself that you don't need others to validate you. The final stage is contribution. Once you become the nonchalant man, you naturally want to help others on their journey. You want to share what you've learned, support others in their growth, and contribute to the world in a meaningful way. This contribution is not about ego or recognition. It's about service and giving back. It's about helping others discover what you've discovered, become what you've become, and transform what you've transformed. The nonchalant man who has completed this journey is not just attractive to women, he's attractive to life itself. He draws opportunities, relationships, success, and fulfillment to himself naturally. He doesn't chase these things. They come to him. This is the ultimate goal, not just to attract women, but to attract everything you want in life. Not just to be desirable, but to be magnetic. Not just to be successful with dating, but to be successful with living. The nonchalant man has mastered the art of being attractive without trying to be attractive. He's learned to be magnetic without trying to be magnetic. He's discovered how to draw everything he wants to himself by becoming the kind of person who naturally attracts what he desires. This is not about manipulation, games, or techniques. This is about transformation, growth, and becoming. This is about evolving into the kind of man who doesn't need to chase anything, because everything he wants is naturally drawn to him. The nonchalant man represents the highest level of masculine development. He's not trying to be alpha. He's not trying to be beta. He's not trying to be anything other than himself. And that authentic self, that's what makes him truly irresistible. Remember, nonchalance isn't a trick. It's a transformation. You don't act like you're high value. You become high value. You don't pretend to be abundant. You develop abundance. You don't fake being confident. You earn confidence. The moment you stop chasing validation is the moment she starts chasing you. The moment you stop needing approval is the moment you start receiving it. The moment you stop being desperate is the moment you start being magnetic. This is your invitation to begin the journey. This is your opportunity to transform from who you are now into who you're capable of becoming. This is your chance to evolve from the man who chases to the man who is chased. The nonchalant man is not born. He's created through conscious effort, deliberate practice, and consistent growth. He's forged in the fire of personal development and refined through the process of self-mastery. You have the potential to become this man. You have the capacity to develop these qualities. You have the ability to create this transformation. The question is, are you willing to do the work? The nonchalant man is waiting for you to become him. The life you want is waiting for you to create it. The woman you want to attract is waiting for you to become the man she can't resist. The journey begins now. The transformation starts today. The nonchalant man you're capable of becoming is calling you to step up, show up, and become the best version of yourself. Are you ready to answer that call? He's not seeking attention. He's not performing. He's just there, solid, grounded, unshakable, and guess what happens? Women gravitate toward him like moths to a flame. The nonchalant man is the real emotional magnet. Not because he's trying to attract anyone, but because he's completely at peace with attracting no one. That paradox? That's where the power lies. Let me paint you a picture. You're at a social gathering. There's the guy who's dominating every conversation, making sure everyone knows about his promotion, his car, his weekend plans. He's loud, he's confident, Then there's the guy sitting quietly, sipping his drink, occasionally adding a thoughtful comment but never trying to steal the spotlight. Which one do you think women are more curious about? The loud guy gets attention. The quiet guy gets remembered. Women don't obsess over men who try to be seen. They crave men who are confident enough not to care about being seen. There's a gravitational pull to someone who doesn't need external validation to feel good about himself. It's like he's operating from a completely different rulebook than everyone else. Think about the most attractive people you know. Are they the ones constantly posting on social media, telling everyone how great their life is? Or are they the ones who seem to have this quiet confidence, this inner knowing that they don't need to prove anything to anyone? The nonchalant man understands something that most men never figure out. Your value isn't determined by how much attention you can get. Your value is determined by how little attention you need. When you stop performing your worth and start embodying it, everything changes. You stop being one of many options and become the option. You stop being loud and become magnetic. Here's what's happening in her mind when she encounters a truly nonchalant man. She's used to guys who are easy to read, easy to predict, easy to categorize. She knows exactly what they want from her and exactly how they're going to try to get it. But then she meets you, and you're different. You're not trying to impress her. You're not seeking her validation. You're not performing for her approval. And that breaks her brain in the best possible way. Women are constantly dealing with men who need something from them. Men who need their attention, their validation, their approval, their affection. It's exhausting. So when they encounter a man who genuinely doesn't need anything from them, who is completely self-contained and at peace with himself, it's like finding water in the desert. The nonchalant man represents something rare in her world, a man who is complete without her. And paradoxically, that completeness makes her want to be part of his world more than anything else. Now let's talk about emotional detachment. And before you get it twisted, Emotional detachment is not coldness. It's not being a robot. It's not shutting down your feelings. Emotional detachment is power. It's the ability to feel your emotions without being controlled by them. It's the difference between emotional numbness and emotional discipline. The nonchalant man feels everything. He just doesn't let those feelings dictate his actions. When someone disrespects him, he feels the anger, but he doesn't react from that anger. When someone tries to manipulate him, he notices the manipulation, but he doesn't get triggered by it. When someone tests him, he sees the test, but he doesn't feel the need to prove anything. This unshakable presence creates emotional safety for women. She doesn't want to break you, she wants to see if you'll break yourself. Every woman has encountered men who seemed strong on the surface but crumbled the moment they faced any real emotional pressure. The nonchalant man doesn't crumble. He doesn't even bend, he remains solid, grounded, and completely in control of his emotional state. Think about it like this. If you're in a storm, do you want to be with someone who's panicking about the weather, or someone who's calmly navigating through it? Women live in an emotional world. They feel everything deeply. So they're naturally drawn to men who can remain stable in the midst of emotional chaos. The nonchalant man is like a lighthouse in a storm. He doesn't move. He doesn't shake. He doesn't react to the chaos around him. He just stands there, solid and reliable, providing a sense of safety and stability that women crave on a deep primal level. When she's having an emotional moment, the nonchalant man doesn't try to fix her or change her or talk her out of her feelings. He doesn't get defensive or reactive. He simply remains present, calm, and grounded. He holds space for her emotions without being consumed by them. And that's incredibly attractive to women. Most men make the mistake of thinking they need to match her emotional intensity. If she's upset, they get upset. If she's anxious, they get anxious. If she's dramatic, they get dramatic. But the nonchalant man does the opposite. The more emotional she becomes, the more grounded he becomes. The more chaos there is around him, the more stillness he embodies. And here's the beautiful part. This isn't something you fake. This isn't a performance. This is who you become when you do the inner work to develop genuine emotional mastery. When you're no longer at the mercy of your emotions, when you can feel without being controlled, when you can remain centered no matter what's happening around you, that's when you become truly attractive to women. Let me introduce you to the nonchalance response matrix. This is how the nonchalant man responds in different situations, and it's completely different from how most men react. When she tests him, and she will test him, the nonchalant man doesn't get defensive, doesn't try to prove himself, doesn't get into arguments. He simply observes the test with mild amusement and either ignores it completely or responds with calm confidence. He understands that her tests aren't about him. They're about her need to feel secure with a man who can't be shaken. When she goes silent, and she will go silent, the nonchalant man doesn't panic, doesn't chase, doesn't fill the silence with nervous chatter. He's comfortable with silence. He's comfortable with space. He's comfortable with not knowing exactly what's going through her mind every second. He gives her the space she needs without making it about him. When she gets emotional, and she will get emotional, the nonchalant man doesn't try to fix her, doesn't get emotional himself, doesn't shut down or run away. He remains present, calm, and grounded. He holds space for her emotions without being consumed by them. He's like a mountain that doesn't move regardless of the weather. When she pulls back, and she will pull back, the nonchalant man doesn't chase, doesn't question, doesn't make it about himself. He simply maintains his own life, his own interests, his own goals. He doesn't try to convince her to come back. He doesn't try to win her over. He simply continues being the man he is, with or without her. Each response is grounded, minimal, and non-reactive. The nonchalant man doesn't operate from a place of fear or neediness. He operates from a place of abundance and self-respect. He doesn't need her to behave a certain way for him to feel good about himself. He doesn't need her validation to know his worth. This response matrix isn't about manipulation or playing games. It's about being a genuinely secure, confident man who doesn't need external validation to feel good about himself. And that security, that confidence, that's what women find irresistible. Now let's talk about why mystery triggers desire. Humans are wired to chase what they don't fully understand. It's in our nature to be curious about the unknown, to want to explore what's hidden, to solve puzzles that aren't easily solved. And women don't fall in love with information. They fall in love with energy gaps. What's an energy gap? It's the space between what they know about you and what they sense about you. It's the feeling that there's more to you than meets the eye. It's the sense that you have depth, layers, complexity that they haven't fully explored yet. The nonchalant man is the riddle she wants to solve. He doesn't reveal everything about himself in the first conversation. He doesn't overshare his life story, his hopes, his dreams, his fears. He reveals himself slowly, in layers like peeling an onion. And that slow reveal, that's what creates obsession. Most men make the mistake of thinking they need to impress women by telling them everything about themselves. They think transparency equals connection. They think sharing equals bonding. But the nonchalant man understands that mystery is magnetic. He understands that the unknown is more interesting than the known. Think about your favorite movie, book, or TV show. Was it the one where everything was revealed in the first 5 minutes? Or was it the one that kept you guessing, that revealed information slowly, that made you want to know more? The nonchalant man is like that compelling story. He's interesting not because of what he reveals, but because of what he doesn't reveal. He's not secretive in a manipulative way. He's not hiding important information or being deceptive. He's simply not an open book. He has depth, and that depth reveals itself naturally over time. He doesn't feel the need to explain himself, justify his actions, or prove his worth through information. When she asks him what he's thinking, he might say nothing important. When she asks about his past, he might share a small piece but leave the rest for another time. When she tries to categorize him, he gently defies her categories. He's not trying to be mysterious. He just naturally is. This mystery creates a vacuum that she feels compelled to fill. She starts thinking about him when he's not around. She starts wondering what he's doing, who he's with, what he's thinking. She starts creating stories about him in her mind. And the more she thinks about him, the more attached she becomes. The nonchalant man doesn't chase her attention. He doesn't compete for her interest. He simply exists in his own mysterious way. And she finds herself drawn to him like a magnet. She can't quite figure him out, and that drives her crazy in the best possible way. Here's something crucial. The nonchalant man practices value management. He doesn't reward chaos. He doesn't give attention to behavior that doesn't deserve it. He doesn't tolerate disrespect or manipulation. Not because he's angry or reactive, but because he has self-respect. He gives attention only when it's earned. When she's being her best self, when she's adding value to his life, when she's showing up in a way that deserves his energy, he gives her his full attention. But when she's being dramatic, manipulative, or disrespectful, he withdraws his attention. Not as punishment, but as a natural consequence. He walks away from manipulation, not out of anger, but out of self-respect. He doesn't argue with crazy. He doesn't try to convince someone to treat him well. He doesn't explain why he deserves respect. He simply removes himself from situations that don't serve him. You don't train people with what you say. You train them with what you tolerate. The nonchalant man understands this principle deeply. He doesn't tell people how to treat him. He shows them through his actions what he will and won't accept. When she throws a tantrum, he doesn't engage with the tantrum. He might say something like, "I can see you're upset. Let me know when you're ready to have a conversation," and then he removes himself from the situation. He doesn't try to fix her emotions. He doesn't try to calm her down. He simply refuses to participate in chaos. When she tries to manipulate him with guilt, emotional blackmail, or dramatic behavior, he doesn't take the bait. He remains calm, centered, and unmoved. He might acknowledge her feelings without accepting responsibility for them. He might say something like, "I understand you're disappointed," without feeling the need to change his behavior to make her feel better. This isn't about being cold or uncaring. It's about having boundaries. It's about knowing your worth and not allowing others to treat you poorly. It's about understanding that you can't control other people's behavior, but you can control your response to it. The nonchalant man creates a standard through his actions. He shows women what it's like to be with a man who respects himself. And when a woman experiences that level of self-respect, she naturally wants to rise to meet it. She finds herself behaving better around him because his presence calls forth her best self. Now let's talk about the difference between stillness and control. This is crucial because most men get this backwards. Alpha types chase control. They try to control outcomes, control other people's behavior, control situations. But the nonchalant man, he holds stillness. What's the difference? Control is about trying to manipulate external circumstances to get what you want. Stillness is about being so centered, so grounded, so at peace with yourself, that you don't need external circumstances to be any particular way for you to feel good. The man who chases control is always stressed, always worried about things not going his way, always trying to manipulate situations to his advantage. He's reactive, he's needy, he's exhausting to be around. The man who embodies stillness is calm, peaceful, and completely at ease, regardless of what's happening around him. And women lean into stillness. They're drawn to it like plants are drawn to sunlight. Why? Because stillness is rare. In a world full of chaos, noise, and drama, the man who embodies genuine stillness is like an oasis in the desert. Stillness disorients a woman who's used to emotional noise. She's used to men who are reactive, who get triggered, who need her to behave a certain way for them to feel good. But the nonchalant man, he's completely at peace regardless of what she does or doesn't do. And that peace is magnetic. Think about it this way. If you're constantly being bombarded by noise, what do you crave? Silence. If you're constantly dealing with chaos, what do you want? Peace. If you're constantly around people who are reactive and emotional, what do you find attractive? Someone who's calm and grounded. The nonchalant man doesn't try to control her emotions. He doesn't try to control her behavior. He doesn't try to control the outcome of their interactions. He simply remains still, centered and at peace. And that stillness creates a space where she can relax, where she can be herself, where she can feel safe. When she's having an emotional moment, the nonchalant man doesn't try to fix it, or change it, or make it go away. He simply holds space for it. He remains still while she experiences whatever she's experiencing. And that stillness, that's what allows her to work through her emotions and come back to center. Most men make the mistake of thinking they need to do something when a woman is emotional. They think they need to fix her, help her, change her emotional state. But the nonchalant man understands that sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is nothing. Sometimes the most helpful thing you can offer is simply your presence. This brings us to masculine polarity and the concept of stability versus drama. Here's a fundamental truth about attraction. She lives in emotion, so she's drawn to what isn't ruled by it. The more unpredictable she is, the more grounded you must be. The more dramatic she is, the more stable you must be. The more emotional she is, the more centered you must be. This isn't about suppressing your emotions or being a robot. This is about understanding that in the dance of masculine and feminine energy, stability and emotion create a beautiful polarity. She brings the flow, the feeling, the spontaneity. You bring the structure, the groundedness, the reliability. When she's all over the place emotionally, the last thing she needs is for you to join her in that chaos. What she needs is for you to be her anchor, her rock, her safe harbor. She needs to know that no matter how stormy her emotional weather gets, you're not going anywhere. You're not going to get swept away by her emotions. You're going to remain solid and steady. This polarity is what creates attraction. It's what creates that magnetic pull between masculine and feminine energy. When you embody genuine masculine stability, it allows her to fully express her feminine emotionality without fear of overwhelming you or pushing you away. The reward for maintaining this polarity? Respect, desire, and yes, sometimes obsession. When a woman encounters a man who can remain grounded no matter what emotional storms she brings, she feels safe to be fully herself. She feels safe to be emotional, to be vulnerable, to be real. And that safety? That's what creates deep, lasting attraction. But here's the thing, this isn't something you can fake. You can't pretend to be stable while being internally chaotic. You can't pretend to be grounded while being emotionally reactive. This has to be genuine. This has to come from real inner work, real personal development, real emotional maturity. The nonchalant man has done the work to develop genuine emotional stability. He's not stable because he's suppressing his emotions. He's stable because he's processed his emotions, healed his wounds, and developed the capacity to feel without being controlled by his feelings. Now here's a crucial principle. You don't win by impressing. You win by being unshakable. Most men think they need to impress women to attract them. They think they need to be entertaining, charming, funny, successful, or interesting. But the nonchalant man understands that trying to impress is actually a form of neediness. When you're trying to impress someone, you're essentially saying, please validate me. Please approve of me. Please find me worthy. But when you're unshakable, you're saying, I'm worthy regardless of what you think of me. I'm valuable regardless of whether you recognize it or not. When she pulls back and you chase, game over. You've just communicated that your emotional state is dependent on her behavior. You've just shown her that she has power over you. You've just revealed that you need her more than she needs you. And that kills attraction faster than anything else. But when she pulls back and you stay composed, game flipped. You've just shown her that you're not dependent on her for your emotional well-being. You've just demonstrated that you're secure enough to give her space. You've just proved that you're not needy or desperate. And that's incredibly attractive. The nonchalant man doesn't chase. He doesn't pursue. He doesn't try to convince anyone to be with him. He simply continues being the man he is, with or without her. And that self-sufficiency? That's magnetic. She respects the man who doesn't explain himself, who doesn't perform for her approval, who doesn't need her validation to feel good about himself. She respects the man who has his own life, his own goals, his own interests, his own friends. She respects the man who would be perfectly fine without her. And here's the beautiful paradox. The more she senses that you'd be fine without her, the more she wants to be with you. The more she sees that you don't need her, the more she wants to be needed by you. The more she realizes you're not chasing her, the more she wants to be caught by you. This isn't about playing hard to get. This isn't about manipulation or games. This is about being genuinely secure, genuinely confident, genuinely self-sufficient. This is about being the kind of man who adds value to a woman's life, rather than needing her to add value to his. The nonchalant man operates from inner abundance, and that inner abundance creates outer magnetism. He acts like he has options because he does. Not necessarily romantic options, but life options. He has interests, hobbies, goals, dreams, friends, activities. His life is full and rich with or without a woman in it. He values his time, his energy, and his peace. He doesn't give these things away carelessly. He doesn't waste his time on people who don't appreciate him. He doesn't invest his energy in situations that don't serve him. He doesn't sacrifice his peace for anyone or anything. When you truly value yourself, others naturally value you too. When you treat your time as precious, others treat it as precious. When you act like your attention is a privilege, others begin to see it as a privilege. When you behave like you're high value, others perceive you as high value. The nonchalant man doesn't act desperate because he's not desperate. He has a life he loves, goals he's working toward, interests that fascinate him. He's not looking for a woman to complete him because he's already complete. He's not looking for someone to make him happy because he's already happy. This inner abundance shows up in everything he does. He doesn't text too much because he has other things to do. He doesn't always be available because he has his own life. He doesn't drop everything for a woman because he has priorities and commitments. He doesn't lose himself in a relationship because he has a strong sense of self. And women find this incredibly attractive. They're used to men who make them the center of their universe, who drop everything for them, who are always available. But the nonchalant man, he has his own universe, and she might be invited to be part of it if she adds value to it. Your presence becomes a privilege, not a given. Women don't take you for granted because you don't give them the opportunity to. You don't always be there, so when you are there, it means something. You don't always say yes, so when you do say yes, it has weight. You don't always give your attention, so when you do give your attention, it's valued. This scarcity principle isn't about being unavailable or playing games. It's about having genuine priorities and boundaries. It's about having a life that's so full and rich that you can't always drop everything for someone else. It's about being selective with your time and energy because you understand their value. The nonchalant man understands that long-term obsession is built, not won. The flashy guy might get her attention for a week, but the calm man lingers in her thoughts for years. The loud guy might make an impression, but the quiet guy makes an impact. The performer might entertain her, but the nonchalant man fascinates her. She doesn't remember the one who chased. She remembers the one who didn't need to. She doesn't obsess over the one who was always available. She obsesses over the one who was selectively present. She doesn't pine for the one who made her the center of his world. She pines for the one who had his own world that she wanted to be part of. Think about the people you remember most from your past. Are they the ones who were always trying to impress you, always seeking your approval, always available? Or are they the ones who were a little mysterious, a little unpredictable, a little hard to read, the ones who made you work a little for their attention, who didn't give everything away at once? The nonchalant man creates lasting memories because he's genuinely memorable. He's not trying to be unforgettable. He just naturally is. He's not trying to create obsession. He just naturally does. He's not trying to make women think about him. They just naturally do. Years later, when she's with someone else, she'll still think about the nonchalant man. She'll wonder what he's doing, who he's with, if he ever thinks about her. She'll remember the way he made her feel without even trying. She'll remember the way he challenged her without even knowing it. She'll remember the way he remained calm while everyone else was losing their minds. The nonchalant man doesn't just win in the moment. He wins in memory. He doesn't just attract in the present. He haunts the future. He doesn't just make an impression. He makes an impact that lasts. And here's why this happens. The nonchalant man gives women something they rarely experience with men. He gives them the experience of being with someone who doesn't need them. And that experience? That's addictive. That's unforgettable. That's the kind of thing that stays with someone for life. Most men are so focused on getting the girl that they forget about keeping her interest long term. They're so focused on winning her attention that they forget about earning her obsession. They're so focused on impressing her in the moment that they forget about impacting her for life. But the nonchalant man, he's not focused on any of those things. He's focused on being the best version of himself. He's focused on living his life authentically. He's focused on maintaining his inner peace and emotional stability. And paradoxically, that focus on himself makes him infinitely more attractive to women. Now let's talk about some practical applications of these principles. Because understanding the theory is one thing, but living it is another. The nonchalant man doesn't just think these thoughts, he embodies these principles in his daily life. When he's texting, he doesn't respond immediately to every message. Not because he's playing games, but because he has other things going on in his life. He responds when it's convenient for him, when he has something meaningful to say, When he's genuinely interested in the conversation. When he's on a date, he's not trying to impress her with stories about his success or his achievements. He's genuinely interested in getting to know her. He asks questions not to gather information, but because he's curious about her as a person. He shares about himself naturally, without bragging or performing. When she's having a bad day, he doesn't try to fix her or cheer her up. He simply listens. He holds space for her emotions without trying to change them. He might say something like, "That sounds really difficult," without feeling the need to offer solutions or advice unless she specifically asks for it. When she cancels plans, he doesn't get upset or take it personally. He simply says, "No problem, let me know when you're free," and then he goes and does something else he enjoys. He doesn't make her feel guilty. He doesn't try to convince her to keep the plans. He simply accepts her decision and moves on. When she's being dramatic or emotional, he doesn't get drawn into the drama. He remains calm and centered. He might say something like, "I can see you're upset. What do you need from me right now?" He doesn't try to calm her down or talk her out of her feelings. He simply remains present and grounded. When she tests him by being late, by being difficult, by being moody, he doesn't fail the test by getting reactive. He simply notices the behavior and responds appropriately. If she's consistently late, he might say, "I value my time. If you're more than 15 minutes late, I'll assume you're not coming." Then he follows through on that boundary. The nonchalant man doesn't argue with unreasonable behavior. He doesn't try to convince someone to be reasonable. He simply sets boundaries and enforces them. He doesn't do this out of anger or frustration. He does it out of self-respect and self-care. When she's being sweet and loving, he receives it graciously. When she's being difficult or challenging, he doesn't take it personally. He understands that her behavior is about her, not about him. He doesn't try to control her emotions or her actions. He simply responds from his own center. This consistency is what makes the nonchalant man so attractive. He doesn't change his behavior based on her behavior. He doesn't become needy when she's distant. He doesn't become cold when she's warm. He remains steady, grounded, and centered regardless of what's happening around him. The nonchalant man also understands the importance of having his own life, his own interests, his own goals. He doesn't make a woman the center of his universe because his universe is already full. He has hobbies he's passionate about, friends he enjoys spending time with, goals he's working toward, interests that fascinate him. When she's not available, he's not sitting around waiting for her to text him back. He's pursuing his own interests, spending time with his friends, working on his goals. He's living his life fully with or without her. And that fullness, that's what makes him attractive. The nonchalant man doesn't lose himself in a relationship. He doesn't abandon his friends, his hobbies, his goals. He doesn't make his happiness dependent on her happiness. He maintains his own identity, his own interests, his own life. And that independence, that's magnetic. Women don't want to be with a man who needs them to feel complete. They want to be with a man who is already complete, but chooses to share his life with them. They don't want to be someone's whole world. They want to be a valued part of an already rich and full world. The nonchalant man offers this. He offers the opportunity to be part of something bigger, something richer, something more interesting than just a relationship. He offers the chance to be with someone who has depth, who has substance, who has a life worth sharing. And here's the beautiful thing. When you live this way, when you embody these principles, you naturally attract women who are also complete, who also have their own lives, who also have depth and substance. You don't attract needy women because you're not needy. You don't attract drama because you don't feed drama. You don't attract chaos because you don't tolerate chaos. The nonchalant man attracts what he is: calm, centered, grounded, secure, confident, and emotionally stable. He attracts women who appreciate these qualities because they possess them themselves. He attracts healthy relationships because he's healthy. He attracts respect because he respects himself. This isn't about manipulation or game playing. This is about becoming the kind of man who naturally attracts the kind of woman you want to be with. This is about developing the inner qualities that make you genuinely attractive, not just to women but to everyone in your life. The nonchalant man doesn't just attract women. He attracts opportunities. He attracts respect. He attracts success. He attracts everything he wants in life because he's become the kind of person who naturally draws good things to him. But here's the key. This isn't something you can fake. You can't pretend to be nonchalant while being internally desperate. You can't act like you don't need validation while secretly craving it. You can't pretend to be emotionally stable while being a mess inside. This has to be real. This has to come from genuine inner work, genuine personal development, genuine healing and growth. You have to actually become the kind of man who is secure, confident, and emotionally stable. You have to actually develop the inner abundance that creates outer magnetism. The nonchalant man has done the work on himself. He's healed his wounds, processed his emotions, developed his emotional intelligence, and cultivated his inner strength. He's not nonchalant because he's suppressing his feelings. He's nonchalant because he's mastered his feelings. He's not detached because he's afraid of intimacy. He's detached because he's secure enough to be intimate without losing himself. He's not mysterious because he's hiding something. He's mysterious because he has depth that reveals itself over time. The nonchalant man is the result of conscious personal development. He's the result of a man who has decided to work on himself, to heal his wounds, to develop his emotional maturity, to cultivate his inner strength. He's the result of a man who has chosen to become the best version of himself, and that's what makes him so attractive. It's not his looks, his money, his status, or his achievements. It's his energy. It's his presence. It's his emotional stability. It's his self-respect. It's his inner abundance. It's his genuine confidence. Women can sense this. They can feel it. They can't always put it into words, but they know when they're in the presence of a man who has done the work on himself. They know when they're with someone who is genuinely secure, genuinely confident, genuinely at peace with himself. And that sensing, that feeling, that's what creates attraction. That's what creates desire. That's what creates obsession. Not games, not manipulation, not tactics, but genuine inner development and emotional maturity. The nonchalant man doesn't need to learn tricks or techniques because he's become the kind of man who naturally attracts what he wants. He doesn't need to manipulate or convince because he's become the kind of man who is naturally compelling. He doesn't need to chase because he's become the kind of man who is naturally chaste. This is the ultimate goal, not to learn how to attract women, but to become the kind of man who naturally attracts the kind of woman you want to be with. Not to learn how to get someone to like you, but to become the kind of person who is naturally likable. Not to learn how to create attraction, but to become the kind of person who naturally creates attraction. The nonchalant man represents the highest level of masculine development. He's not trying to be alpha. He's not trying to be dominant. He's not trying to be anything other than himself. And that authenticity, that genuineness, that's what makes him truly attractive.